Greetings and welcome to the Mount Rushmore podcast. My name is Jeff, and I'm joined, as per the usual, by my good friends Richard.
Hello.
And Michael.
Howdy.
Richard and Michael. You know how they do. They debate, they deliberate the Mount Rushmore of the most ubiquitous aspects of any given topic. And this week is different in that we have an external competitor, an outside challenger, and a very funny contributor out there to the podcast land. It is Kate Gaffney. How you doing, Kate?
Hi. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, we're so happy you're here. Kate, tell us what you do and where people can find it.
Oh, okay. So I am a fellow podcaster. Hello, everyone. And I have a podcast that's called Service from Hell. It is on anywhere you can get a podcast. And the premise is just talking to people that work in various forms of customer service. It's not limited to bars and restaurants. It is literally any type of customer service. We've had doctors, we'll have lawyers, etc. So anyone that interfaces with a customer, and we just talk about the good, bad, and the irritating things that go along with that. But we end positively. And you can find that anywhere, and you can find me at thekategaffney.com. All my info, socials, upcoming, whatever nonsense is all there.
Awesome. That's so cool. Kate is indeed an actor and improviser and all the other things in addition to being a very talented podcaster. And you have some experience probably in different industries, but is customer service something you have a background in?
Yeah, so the idea was the podcast was born from having worked in bars and restaurants to supplement my acting career. Cough, cough. Basically to supplement my life. And I've worked in customer service forever. And in Los Angeles, it's a particular brand of human interaction, I would say, that's a little different than other cities. And so after I work at the Comedy Store when it is open and when things are up and running. And that is a uniquely terrible and wonderful job. And the terrible side of it inspired the podcast because you interface with people very quickly. And it's not a traditional restaurant, but people come in with the expectations that it is. And so, you can't serve 150 people at the same time. And yet they think you can. So, yeah, that's where it came from.
Well, okay. So I have done everything but introduce our topic. Now, we often place our discussions within the backdrop of film and television and storytelling. And this week is no different. And the weird topic is the Mount Rushmore of the least accurate depictions of the bar and restaurant. Wait, did I get that right? What did you get? Yeah, okay.
You threw the dart at the board on that one, and it got so close. I'll give it to you.
Okay, thank you. I'm already points behind, and I'm not even competing. The truth is film and television stories and sitcoms and things can take place in many different places, like fantasy situations, like a spaceship speeding through the universe, or places we might have been once, like a firehouse or a newsroom or something like that. But when they put them into bars, restaurants, cafes, those are places that we've gone to a lot, and some of us have worked in a lot. And it might be a little bit hard to turn off our critical brain, even though we know it's entertainment. We might sit there and go, shouldn't you be rolling up silverware into napkins right now? I can't believe she's going on a break. That break has lasted forever while Chad breaks up with her. So we know that these are entertainment and not necessarily real, but sometimes it's hard to turn off our brain. And so we're going to talk about that during this podcast. So our guest always goes first on the Mount Rushmore podcast. And Kate, you're going to kick it off here with your first choice for the Mount Rushmore of least realistic situations, service situations found in bars and restaurants. Go.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen, for letting me go first. I appreciate it. Number one, this was very easy for me, was It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It is one of my favorite shows. I think it's very well done. But there's never anyone in that bar minus the off times when occasionally they have some wild night that ended up doing well. And the very few customers or regular patrons that they have are borderline dead. And no one ever goes up to the bar to order a drink, never, not once. And it is so distracting. And I recognize that it's fiction and it's just TV. But as Jeff said, it is so irritating. And I wonder, how does this bar make money? How do they stay open? It takes me out of every episode. So that's my number one.
That's really funny. I do think that they ultimately solved that problem by just bringing in Frank, who's just rich and just like, doesn't give a shit about his money anymore. And so he's just been funneling money into this place. But yeah, it's always funny to see, this place that is the exact opposite of Cheers, a place that is just like bustling with people at all times of day, that as soon as the place opens, somehow it's 4 or 5 couples start streaming in. And then, It's Always Sunny, it's just like that one guy that's in the back of the room on every episode. And you're like, what is this place?
Did Samuel Beckett write this script? Because it feels like there's nothing here. Have they all died and we find out at the end? I would say it does seem kind of like a funny observation to make, because it's almost like if you watched the Roadrunner Wile E. Coyote and are befuddled that the coyote can't catch him, or that he survives another 3,000 foot fall off the mesa or something. It seems so petty to make these comments, but I've worked in restaurants many times in my life, and you just develop this energy that allows you to survive in that environment. And you can't, if you rest, you rust. If you're still, you're dead, and you're going to be in the weeds. So that's what I feel whenever I see a dead bar like that. Do you think that there's anything that they're doing it for artistic reasons? There's not an artistic motivation other than just to kind of make room for the actors, or maybe extras cost money and they can't afford it.
I think that's actually it. Yeah, I know that they were really, really on a shoestring budget the first season or two. So I think there was an element of they just did not have the funds for extras. Mm-hmm. And I do think there's also the element of it's supposed to show this is not a successful place. These are not good business people. These are not proprietors that you would want to spend an evening with. So yeah. I think that's probably an intentional choice on their part.
Yeah, it fits with the degenerate theme of exactly what you just said, like that they don't want it to appear necessarily too successful, and the offshoot episodes where they were overwhelmed with people, they as the characters just didn't know what to do, and they wanted it to be less successful because they couldn't handle the influx of people. So yeah, it was, I think it's, and also to Richard and to your point, yeah, background costs money, and the first, I think the first 2 seasons pretty definitively the show was holding on by a thread. And actually Danny DeVito's character didn't get introduced until season 2 because his manager was a fan of the show, and the script kind of rolled past his manager's desk. And then anyway, that's not what this podcast is about.
Oh, cool.
But, yeah.
At some point, Kate, I might ask you if there's something that has ever really happened in a service environment that you've been in that if you had seen it on film or television, you'd say, bullshit, that wouldn't happen. Because you've probably seen.
I have an answer for that. So I can answer that now, or I can answer that later, because I've got a chambered response.
Wow.
To that.
Okay. Well, let's make speaking of a coyote, let's make a cliffhanger and let Richard and Michael do their round, and then we'll get back to that.
Okay.
Sure. I'll go first, Michael, if that's kosher.
Yeah, go for it.
You mentioned Cheers a little while ago, Michael. And one of the things that's always bothered me about Cheers is the fact that there are 4 people who work there. And they seem to work every shift. The bar is open. There are no secondary, no fill-in waiters or waitresses. There's no fill-in bartenders. It's just the 4 of them. They apparently don't take any days off. They apparently don't fail to work any shifts. I don't even know when their lunch breaks are, because I've never seen one. You never saw Carla slipping out back to munch down on a cheeseburger that she got from wherever the restaurant is upstairs. This is like a recurring theme in TV shows, and especially TV shows, I think, where you want to establish your workplace, but you never really, there's no way to establish other characters other than these core 4 people that you want to focus the show around. And so with Cheers, that's one thing I remember watching, and it was like it was another Wile E. Coyote type thing, where it's just like, wait a second, what's going on here?
Kate was having palpitations when you mentioned that, because I think that probably connects. There's some synergy going on in your thinking. Kate, what was your feeling about that?
Oh, 100%. I mean, it bothered me. I discovered Cheers in quarantine because I was trying to catch up on, shows I hadn't seen before. And yes, if I can piggyback on that, also Diane and Sam, who may be the only 2 people behind the bar, always go to the office and have these long-winded conversations. And it's like, well, then everyone should be robbing the bar. Like,
Yeah.
that's not, it's so
That's not
distracting.
the Boston I know. Yeah.
Yes! Like,
Yeah.
yes. So I 100% agree that it's very distracting, Richard. I would argue yes to that.
There is an occasional episode where someone will come in saying, "Oh, today is my day off," or what have you. But then you just think, "Oh my God, place has just been. All these people had to do so much extra work during that time. It is so difficult. I mean, obviously it's a sitcom, but like the extra work and effort that has been put upon these other people is horrible. I would complain to the owner if the owner didn't do the exact same thing to his employees. The one thing that I think, having watched Cheers numerous times, I love the only aspect that I love the show, but the aspect that I love the most is all the busy work that the actors do behind the bar. It actually looks like they could actually serve drinks. They're always cutting lemons and limes, and they're filling things up, and they're just doing these little bits and pieces that you don't normally see. I think that's where the show, like the realism, is just like Sam taking orders and trying to remember them, then making the drinks as some other bit of comedy is happening. You see this stuff in the background, but the actual number of people employed at this bar that's open from apparently the morning till 2 a.m. is awful.
Yeah, when do they open? It seems like that they open early. So these guys, poor Carla and Woody are working like 14-hour shifts, 7 days a week.
She's got 6 kids. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's that too. Who's watching the kids?
Yeah, no husband around.
I do recognize that if I watch Grey's Anatomy, I don't stop and go, McSteamy didn't clamp off that artery before he made the incisor on the forearm. Like, I don't care about that, but because I've worked in bars and restaurants, it all seems very real. And what do we want to see? Do we want to see a Cheers script where they get real with the actual business of running a bar? No dialogue, just all balls to the wall customer service. Yeah.
Just nothing but ordering. Lots of ordering of supplies.
In between them getting robbed.
Yeah,
yes,
in between. Yeah.
robbed.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Okay, so we are at the end of our first round, and as hinted, Kate might have some kind of OMG moment. I can't believe this really happened in a bar or restaurant that I worked, and it's so crazy you wouldn't believe it. What is it?
I promise you on everything, this 100% happened to me. I was waiting on these 2 girls who were very specifically dressed in a way that would make you think that they were very rich, Gucci head to toe, Louis Vuitton bags. And where I work, it's a 2-drink minimum. You can't argue that. You got to get the 2 drinks, whether you order bottles of water or whatever, doesn't matter. So they were very incensed that it was taking longer than 5 minutes for me to go up the stairs and down the stairs with a tray of 20 drinks. They wanted their drinks right away. So the energy was just off from the beginning, but you get used to seeing that and interacting with people like that. So you just keep it moving. I dropped their second set of drinks and they said, we need to leave right now. And there was a comedian on stage and I said, okay, no problem. And I still had half of a tray to drop. So I said, I'm going to drop the rest of my tray and then I'll cash you guys out. No, we need to leave now. And I said, okay, well, again, still got to drop those drinks. So then I ran downstairs to cash them out. I come back upstairs. They're waiting for me at the top of the stairs. They've created a barrier so I can't get through. And they said, we're paying cash for this because their card got declined several times. They must have gotten a notice on their phone or whatever. So I said, okay, here's your bill. And then they said, we need a copy of the receipt. I had literally just handed them the receipt. And I said, you have it. Because at this point, I had it. And what I should have done was just said, okay, and printed the receipt, but I had it. And so I said, well, you have it in your hand. No, we don't. And I said, okay. So I went to the terminal that was right there. I had to separate them like the Red Sea and then go to the terminal and print the receipt again. And then I handed it to the other girl. There were obviously 2 of them. And they take money. The bill was $61. I remember this so specifically. They take $60, crumple it up, and throw it at me. And I said, okay. I was like, well, first of all, the money's on the ground. And I was like, and your total's 61, and this is 60. And they said, we are leaving now. Give us our card. And I said, okay. I was like, well, again, you're going to need to pay me for the full bill. And then, am I allowed to curse on this podcast?
Yes, please curse.
Okay. They said, bitch, give us our card now. We are leaving. And I said, okay. I was like, now you've called me outside of my name. And I was like, so I'll just grab security and we'll make this really unpleasant for everyone. And so I'm holding the card. One of the girls goes to rip it out of my hand. The other girl tries to push me down there's two different sets of stairs to get into the room. One is like three or four stairs high. The other is like a full flight. She tried to push me down like the 5-stair, whatever. I catch myself and then I'm like shaking. So I'm like, oh, this isn't safe. So I go to run out of the room and find security because they didn't make it up the stairs quick enough. I meet them at the bottom of the stairs and security's like, what's going on? And I was like, these girls. And as I say that, the one girl runs past me and goes to grab my hair. She is unsuccessful. And she says, bitch, you better give us our fucking card, bitch. And starts like just losing it. Now, keep in mind, there's 2 other theaters that they have now walked past and they're creating this whole scene. Now they're like skinny. They're very thin, tiny, like Louis Vuitton, Gucci girls. And so the security guard literally can pick up this 90-pound chihuahua and just move her over. The other girl is trying to get around the security guard's like this lovely 6'5" yoked dude. And he was like, I got you, Kate. Like, no worries. So the one girl that he has pinned up against the wall, the other girl tries to run around and is like, come outside. We'll cut you, bitch. Like running their mouth. And I was like, in my head, I was thinking, this is funny, except it's happening to me. Like if I witnessed this, I would be like, this is hilarious. Cause like, I'm not a tiny girl. Like I could have flicked them both in the forehead and they would have been on the ground. And so I'm trying to deal with this. So I decide like, it's over. Security takes them outside. They're still barking. And then the
listeners,
other,
hold on, listeners, just so you know, Kate is 10 foot tall. Just so you know, she is not a tiny girl. Okay, back to your story. The security has him outside.
Yep, and I'm ripped to shreds. Yeah. Nobody come at me. And so the security keeps the barrier, and the girl was like, "You fat bitch, you're a blah blah blah." And as soon as she said "you fat bitch," I was just like, you know what? Like I've had it. You got as many bitches in as I will tolerate. And so I went to turn, and one of my dearest friends, who is a lovely comic, his name is Earl Skakel. He is a regular at the store, and he saw my face switch. And he steps in front of me and he goes, "Not today, Kate." And I was like, "Nope, I'm losing my job right now. I don't care." And he was like, "Not today, not today." And he physically like turned me around and had me walk down the hall. And I was shaking. And then the next day I was like, oh man, like that was insane. So that is my story of one of the craziest situations that's happened to me, that if someone else said it, I'd be like, you're lying. You're exaggerating about something. I promise you on everything. Every detail I said was true.
Yes, I can't see that happening at Central Perk in a Friend script. I love Earl Skakel. He was in a project I did like 20 years ago.
Oh,
I haven't
lovely.
seen him forever. The dude, back then he collected hockey or game-worn hockey jerseys, I think.
Still does.
Still rocking the hockey jerseys.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Shout out to his fiance who doesn't love that. Hi, Chandler.
Ooh, yikes.
Yeah.
Yikes. Okay, Richard and Mike, it's Kate. Kate going into her second choice for the Mount Rushmore.
Well, I don't know what to do because it is definitely Cheers. So I definitely put that in
cool.
number 2.
Yeah.
And yeah, my argument stands that it's just Sam and Diane going in the back. Yeah, like, Carla never getting a break. And also like the Coach T stuff I thought was so lovely, but it was like there was a certain point when it just, I don't know, it felt like no one would be that charitable in a real bar situation, and so like, and he was such the dearest actor and apparently just the loveliest dude, but those handful of episodes right before he passed away, I was like, oh, this is so sad. Like, this is no. Like, no bar would be this charitable. Although this bar would be because they're fine with being robbed. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, go for it, Richard and Michael.
Well, our second choice is going to be Arthur the Fonzarelli's, quote, office inside the men's bathroom at Arnold's Diner on Happy Days. And, like, just the idea that all of the couple of different owners that owned Arnold's, whether it was Pat Morita's character or it was Al Del Vecchio.
Uh-huh.
I can't quite remember his last name. Did they just allow this older man to set up a desk as a like they just kowtowed to like his creepy
Yeah.
lusting and wolfing over all the underage teenage girls, and he used it to offer advice to Richie and his gang of idiots, and that he had eventually like his own phone, put in there. And I can't do. My question is, I mean, okay, I guess this happened. Do like the girls do they know that he has this in here? Isn't that just such the biggest turnoff? Like, where's your office? It's not upstairs. It's not behind the thing. It's in the guy's room. How fucking gross is that? And maybe like health standards were better back then, but I don't think so.
Well, and they let him take his motorcycle into the restaurant. This seems like a health code violation.
Yeah.
Sir, could you please turn off your engine? You're getting soot in my milkshake.
To the restaurateur's defense, I imagine both of them had arrangements with their accountants to get a some kind of write-off for a home office or an office within the restaurant. But I don't know what kind of bizarre tax structure or legal loophole of Milwaukee, Wisconsin exists in which one could write off a portion of a restroom as a place of business for a Lothario, an Italian Lothario. But I do wonder, yes, like to Fonzie's, you're kind of labeling this Fonzie as a misogynist somewhat to bring women into this area to do business. But like to his defense, he did pound on the door and make the nerds leave first. I think that was customary.
Well, I guess you're right.
Yeah.
What a gentleman.
What a gentleman.
Yeah, guys, calm down. It's okay.
Yeah.
Did that really take place in Milwaukee, Wisconsin? Was that the idea that Happy Days was in Wisconsin? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I met somebody not maybe even a little bit younger than yourself, Kate, who thought Happy Days was actually filmed in the era of which it depicted. I know it.
Oh, I thought that too. Wait, when was it filmed?
So Happy Days is
mid to late 70s.
Yeah, so
really?
At least 2 decades after it's the era in which it depicts.
Wow, I really didn't. I guess that doesn't make sense that I would have thought that too, because all of those, well, minus Pat Morita, most of the people are still alive. Interesting. I should have put that together when I saw Scream.
It all piggybacked off of American Graffiti, which came out in '75. That kind of took place, a decade and a half earlier, and kind of capitalized on the success of like the nostalgia of the late '50s and drive-ins and stuff like that. So they just basically were like, what if we did American Graffiti, but as like a TV series, and also still used Ron Howard,
From what I know,
he was in that too. That's right. Sorry, go ahead.
There was a pilot. Gary Marshall did a pilot called Love and the Happy Days.
Love American Style.
Wasn't it an episode of Love American Style?
There was a pilot called Love and the Happy Days. And
here comes Jeff over the top to knock us both on our heads, Rich. Sorry.
It was a pilot. It failed. It was picked up. The pilot episode, like many pilot episodes, were then encapsulated in a show called Love American Style, which would buy failed pilots, cut them up, and use them as segments of their anthology show about romance. And it proved so popular as an episode of Love and the Happy Days. And then American Graffiti came out. So now Gary Marshall had this pilot that did well as an excerpted in Love and the Happy Days, that had the dude who was the star of that George Lucas movie that was very popular. And so George Lucas went on to do romantic comedies for the rest of his career. No, wait. He did Star Wars.
Wait,
what movie?
So was Henry Winkler in the original pilot? Jeff, do you know?
No, I don't. No, he wasn't in the original. Oh, do you hear something?
No.
Okay, that's my dog.
Oh,
sorry.
Sneezing? Did your dog
sneezing? Yeah.
Oh, it's adorable.
I don't think he was. But I do think Chuck was in it.
Chuck
was
Chuck
Richie, who dribbled his basketball upstairs and was never seen again, as our former podcast guest Moxie LaBouche summarized.
So I'm just trying to figure out, at some point they decided what really is going to take this over the top is like a 5'2" Jewish guy playing the coolest Italian guy in the world.
Yeah, the coolest. Yeah.
Some point this happened.
In a windbreaker in the first couple episodes until they agreed that he wasn't too much of a hoodlum if he wore a leather jacket. So we're going to go to our break, but not until after. Kate Gaffney lets us know a few of the topics that she has discussed with her guests on Service from Hell.
I don't know how gross I should be, but
go for it. Go for it.
Okay, the doctor talks about disimpacting an elderly person, so we have discussed that. I have heard a story of vomiting blood all over someone, not a doctor. That was a bartender. And we talk a lot about drugs because in the restaurant and bar industry, apparently that is just, or at least in the nightclub industry, drugs are pervasive, guys. If you didn't know, I know.
What?
Breaking news on this podcast. You're welcome.
Someone should do an expose on this. Someone should get 2020 on it.
Yeah. So look it up, listeners. Service from Hell. You can go out onto any podcatcher and find it. You could also go to Kate's website. Kate's, what's your URL for your thing?
The Kate Gaffney, TheKategA, F as in Frank, NEY.com, because Kate Gaffney is a singer in Pennsylvania, and she took that URL, and she's also on the first page of Google, and I'm bitter about it, but it's fine. She's got a good voice. But yeah, so she owns all the branding. So good job, her.
Yeah, good job, the Kate and just Kate Gaffney.
Thanks, Jeff.
And good job, you listener, for choosing the Mount Rushmore podcast as your choice of entertainment. This week, we'd like to encourage you to go back into our archives and download, rate, and review past episodes. Any stars you want to give us, 1 through 5, would be really helpful. You could also do us a solid and share the Mount Rushmore podcast or Service from Hell podcast out there on social media. Also, join us in dialogue. We have been encouraged by suggestions from previous listeners who've gone out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and given us ideas for future episodes. So that's really cool to hear what you want us to talk about or to let us know where we missed certain suggestions for previous topics. So we would love you if you did that, and we'd love to know that you shared the podcast. So that'd be super cool. Yes, sir.
Hey, Jeff, you can also promo that next week our guest, very special guest we have coming on, singer-songwriter Kate Gaffney.
Oh, sweet.
So,
damn it. That's it. I'm not coming back after the break. I knew it.
Boy, howdy. What a catch. I can't believe that. We got
You've got your journalism, Jeff. I'm not here for it.
Oh, my God. That's so hilarious. That's so hilarious. There's a bow hunter named Jeff Hopkins who's going to be the host of it, too.
There's somebody in Pennsylvania that has my name, and he uses my email address to have olive oil shipped to his house. And it is
Wait,
wild.
Are you serious?
It is wild that I don't know. He just doesn't understand that how Gmail works or how internet works or how email addresses work. So every once in a while, I'll get an email receipt for this person's with my name in Pennsylvania, and it's like, oh, okay, that's a lot of olive oil, I guess. Wow, buy it special.
Something's happening in Pennsylvania because this other Kate Gaffney lives there too, or did, or is from there or something. Something's happening. I don't like this.
We all have a lookalike or a name. We all have somebody in Pennsylvania who's stealing our thunder.
Some bitch who's stealing our thunder. And hey, listeners, you should rate and review this podcast because these gentlemen are lovely, and it is rare to be a woman on a podcast where you are not interrupted, and that has not happened, and they all say excuse me. And ladies, this is such a lovely podcast to be a part of, so you should rate it and review it and listen to it and tell your friends.
Oh, that's so cool. We try so hard to be woke bros here, and
you are.
We rarely succeed, but this time we did.
No, it's lovely.
We're fooling her. We're fooling her, Jeff.
We're fooling her, guys.
I'm wooing you so you don't have that bitch on the podcast next week, Richard.
That's right. We'll call and cancel. We'll call her. Kate, now it's your turn to let us know your third choice.
Okay, here we go. This is wildly specific. So I'm a huge Parks and Rec fan. So Parks and Rec obviously doesn't take place in a restaurant. However, there is a scene where Ron Swanson goes into a diner because he is mad that this steakhouse in this famous town where he had an affiliation or grew up or whatever was closed. It had shut down. And so he says to the man waiting on him behind the counter, give me all of the bacon and eggs that you have. And the waiter just goes, okay. And then Ron stops him and says, no, I just want to be clear. What I said was give me all of the bacon and eggs that you have, not a lot of them. And the waiter's like, right, got it. And I love Ron Swanson. He is probably my favorite character on the show. But like, in no universe is a diner that is like mostly probably a breakfast serving location going to give you all of their eggs and bacon because they've already got their food delivery for the next day and you're there at night. How are they going to give anybody, what are they going to tell all the patrons in the morning? Oh, sorry, we're out of eggs and bacon. Like, and I love his delivery and he's such a good actor and such a good dude. But no, Parks and Rec, that's not possible. It's very frustrating. So that's my third.
How would you describe Ron's disposition at that point? Because he seems nearly suicidal, I think, in that point. Like he's at his rock bottom. Yeah.
He doesn't ever lose it. Like that's one of the most awesome things about his character, that he's just reading everybody in the room, but he's just maintaining this like level calm of I could murder you, but I won't. Yeah. And in that moment, I would say that's the closest we see him to breaking, because he's just had to accept that he's going to be around, you know, vegans and no meat, and like the steakhouse was manna from heaven for him. So yeah, suicidal or homicidal. He was teetering for sure.
I would say Ron, as you described him, as this kind of cool customer who has this kind of placid demeanor that's really never that upbeat, unless he's kind of got he's giggling at a woodworking advertisement or something like that. But then when he's is it Tammy 2 or whenever Tammy comes in or he becomes Duke Silver, those are those two modes in which he diverts from that complacent attitude.
Yeah. Tammy 2 is Megan Mullally, right? Or no, is that no, Tammy 1 is his mom, Tammy 2 is his first wife, Tammy 3 is his second wife. I get
the Megan Mullally character.
Yes, she sets him upside down and backwards, which is adorable because they're married in real life, which I just love. It's not what this is about, but I love that detail.
Yeah, I do wonder if what's his name, Nick Offerman, went to the producers at some point and said, I need variety. I need this guy to have some kind of flight of fancy at some point. Michael, what were you going to say?
Oh, I love that he and Leslie Knope have that just great bond over food. You know, she has this just tremendous sweet tooth that is just also not to be believed for a person of her size and stature, and just, you know, she just all the sugar is just pours it into her. And I do like that they are so different, but they still have like this food bond between the two. I think it's very, very charming.
Yeah. I don't know if it was that restaurant. I don't think it was, but one of the most unrealistic restaurant scenarios for me is that I believe that was or is 4 and 20.
Here in LA.
Yeah, on Van Nuys. And whenever I see that, I think that's totally unrealistic because the food is not very good at 4 and 20. And why would these people be frequenting this place? And then
that is the thing that we suffer from being in the Valley. Is we'll watch a show, usually something filmed at Burbank Studios. Like we were watching a Parks and Recs the other day, and you know, they were sitting kitty corner across from like the Valley liquor store, like on Moore Park and Colfax, and was like, "Yep, I know where that is. That is not Pawnee, Indiana, a town that also doesn't exist."
Yeah. I whenever I see Gnarls Barkley filming a rock video in Frank's Diner, you know, or something like that, it's always kind of a mind blower. So, gentlemen, Kate is, if this were a customer service scenario, you are the waitress and Kate is all up in your face, just kind of running circles around you and kind of destroying you guys. So you got a lot of field to make here. So what you can do to catch up.
All right, so we'll go with our third one. I think that's what we do next, correct, Jeff?
Yes.
Okay. Our third one is Cocktail, the movie. Wow. The entirety of the movie Cocktail, from start to finish, just a ridiculous concept and execution. Yeah. It's like Coyote Ugly, but with Tom Cruise, essentially. If you guys have not seen this movie, and I haven't seen it in 30 years probably since I caught it on HBO one night. And I remember watching this on HBO, and I was probably 10, 12 at the time, maybe. I think it came out in 87, 88. And I remember thinking, I don't know anything about bars, but this doesn't seem right. This is not passing the smell test. This idea that you can become like this local celebrity and this, rock star based on the fact that you do a few spinny, flippy tricks with your alcohol when you pour it for somebody just seems so out of touch with anything that has to do with what happens at a bar.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know, like, if I go to a nice bar, and you guys know me, so just play along and pretend that I would actually go to a nice bar. And if the person working behind the bar is a mixologist, my teeth start to grind just a little bit, because I know it's going to take 10 minutes for my drink to get made. And God forbid there's 2 or 3 people ahead of me. It may be a half hour before I get a drink.
Yeah.
And it may be the most amazing drink that I've ever had. But I'd be willing to take about 20% less quality to be able to get that drink quicker.
Mm-hmm.
Now, can you imagine if it's some dude who's up there, like, flipping the bottles and juggling? And he's not making necessarily a better drink. If anything, I would imagine all the sloshing of the alcohol is, I don't know, disturbing the spirits somehow.
Yeah.
But all he's doing is making a big fireworks show, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the entirety of the movie Cocktail. That is the plot. That's the plot.
The 80s were a douchey time.
Yes.
And so there was a lot of douchosity happening and is the bar in the Florida Keys or something? I forget where it is. So
yeah, I think it starts off in Florida. Then he goes to Jamaica for a while. That's where he meets Elizabeth Shue, I believe.
She's in the movie?
Yeah, she is.
Her.
She's the love interest.
I just want to point out Karate Kid is my favorite movie, and we've made reference to two of the actors in that film, and proving its brilliance and separate conversations. Yeah, Pat Morita and Elizabeth Shue. So well done, gentlemen.
Nice.
Yeah. Who is it? Zabka? Is that the other one we got to... who was the other guy? We got a Billy...
If you can work him in.
Okay, we'll work on that.
Okay.
I remember seeing that film and with my ex-wife. That's how long ago it was. And I think there was a trend that douchey bartending, the flash bartending, was a big effing deal. And it's more... as much so that Disney opened a entertainment venue that's kind of like Downtown Disney or City Walk, if you're familiar with those themed entertainment areas. Disney had a flash bartending bar in Orlando in their adult entertainment area. So yeah, that was a big effing deal. But now it seems like you're describing kind of flashy and then slow. Like a mixologist, I associate with that dude who's mulling the cilantro that he wants to put in, drink or whatever. It's like artisanally
grown with his pestle.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Ignoring you as he peers through his monocle at the ice that he's rimming the metal mixer thing. What was it?
There's a great episode of Portlandia that captures both of these characters. Andy Samberg plays a character who the two mains, they go to like this little dive bar, this little like mixology bar in Portland, and he's taking his time making this perfect drink for her, and then she like falls in love with him, and then she learns that he's moved away and has moved to LA, so they go to LA. And when he's in LA, he turns from that one mixologist bartender into the spinning cocktail douchebag bartender, and he's just such an a-hole. And it's so funny that I like that, Richard, you hate both versions of that person. Yeah. that isn't just pouring the booze directly into like a dirty shot glass
or straight into my mouth like I'm in Tijuana or something. Just cut out the middleman. Yeah,
I will say I started to gain some respect for Tom Cruise a few movies after, when I realized he was not the only person getting millions of dollars to be the leading man in these films, but he was the only person who was actually learning to play pool as well as a pool shark, or to mix drinks as well as a flash bartender, or to drive a Formula One car, to do these and lately, hold on to a jet plane as it's taking off. So
I think
the fact that he did that, the fact that he was holding on to the jet plane and mixing the drinks at the same time was just
an Alabama slam.
Come on.
Yeah. Okay, guys. I think now it's Kate's fourth choice, unless my math is messed up. Kate, is it your final choice? Okay.
Yes, it is. This is also incredibly specific and probably weird, but I have also in quarantine, I've been watching a lot of TV, folks, and Law and Order SVU is repetitively on the TV, and I love the show. I'm obsessed. And anytime Olivia Benson is meeting like the newest DA or a new employee or a date or whatever, they're going out obviously in Manhattan. Usually they're in New York City at some point. And she always finds a seat directly at the bar, which, okay, that's totally possible in Manhattan. Never needs a reservation. And B, anytime she wants another drink, like she drinks, I think it's like scotch and on the rocks or something, she just puts her little finger up and then magically, immediately the drink appears. And like in Manhattan, if you find a bartender that's willing to even look your way, even at dead bars, you're an anomaly. And like, granted, she's NYPD, but like that can go either way. It's like, well, maybe they don't like you because you are a cop. And for the hours that she works, every time she goes to these bars, she's like beautifully put together. And so are the bartenders, who never have towels over their shoulders or like towels in their back pocket. And like, I'm sorry, but you're working at some of the, like that is probably minus Vegas or Miami, like the highest volume city per capita of just bars going crazy all the time. Like, it's really frustrating. It takes me out of every time she's meeting the new DA. I can't deal. So yeah, that's.
I was thinking that one thing I kind of liked about Breaking Bad was I thought maybe I'm really learning how to cook meth here. Like maybe this is real. And that was a plus for me. But I wonder if every TV show, every movie took that path of made that thing real. Would we be disappointed? Would it just be too slow? Would it just be boring? This is a procedural crime thing, not a procedural customer service thing.
That's funny.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. But like, well, two things. I just want to jump on. Like, you did tell on yourself a little bit. Like, learning how to cook meth would have been advantageous for you for why? You don't want to say it on the podcast,
you never
Jeff?
know.
Okay, cool. We'll move past it. I just was curious if you would tell on yourself more.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I guess it would be boring but it's like, here's what it is, especially with that show. It's so fine-tunedly accurate with details. Like if you have lawyers in your family or anybody that works for any sort of precinct, like, yeah, the speed with which they get the DNA samples back and stuff is obviously not realistic, but the way they interact with victims, the sort of the process of how it all goes, I have heard is incredibly accurate. So I guess like with the amount of attention to detail for everything else, it's like, well, why not just take it over the finish line? Like, do it with everything then. Have that bartender be stressed out, or put a towel over one of their shoulders. Just one. And I've seen the 157,000 episodes that are on TV. I've watched them all probably twice. One towel, one time. And then I'd be like, okay.
Okay, I'm good. I got my towel. Yeah. I want you to go back and work with a CG team to fix all of the TV shows.
I would. I would do it. Does that get me on the first page of Google? Because I'll do it.
I want to knock out the other Kate Gaffney.
Yeah.
All right, guys, your last shot at trying to depose who was clearly winning this, the real
bummer.
Kate Gaffney. Yeah.
Well, for some reason, I guess with all of this, I was stuck in a small town. So our fourth choice is the Langford lunchbox on Roseanne. The idea that there is an entire restaurant that was just selling loose meat sandwiches seems out of this world ridiculous to me. It would only exist in two ways. One, if it was like this kind of way ahead of its time, really niche place that would have been called like Slop and just had like an umlaut over the O.
Yeah.
And the only way it could exist in another way is it wouldn't exist. And like, for the show, they needed a place to create more conflict and get Roseanne out of working at the kind of the factory that had closed down. And, there's a lot of very, kind of Rust Belt themes that happen in the show, and to open your own business and to be struggling, but just that they settled on like loose meat sandwiches, and that someone would have like a really good recipe for one that's just like, come, I guess it's so weird. And maybe I'm just, I'm born and raised in Los Angeles my entire life on the coast. I can't imagine. It is not in my.
I don't think John Goodman has eaten a meal in his life that did not consist of loose meat sandwiches.
Loose meat. Loose meat is so funny.
Michael,
why is that so funny?
There's another podcast where you just say loose meat sandwiches. Oh.
Loose meat. I do appreciate that Roseanne and Tom Arnold later went on to open their own version of this, like IRL, and it seems like, these things that happen on TV they don't have to become reality just because it happened. Yeah. You don't have to have done this thing. Like, you don't have to have done the things that you just lived. It seems very strange.
Yeah.
See, I'm the cheesy asshole that like loves the pop-up. Like, they did a Saved by the Bell pop-up for the Max. The Max was like for your listeners who are cooler than I am and probably didn't watch Saved by the Bell, that's where they served like the burgers and the milkshakes, and that was their after high school hangout. They had a pop-up that was traveling all over LA, and it landed in West Hollywood. You had to pay $40 for a ticket just to like get a reservation. This was all pre-COVID, obviously. And then you could like buy a Max burger, and like my dumbass did it, and it was super fun. And so I totally understand the argument that not everything has to be made a reality, but I would also go to that Disney like flair situation. Like, give me a gimmick and I'm here for it.
Give me a show. You want the show.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty hilarious. Well, Kate, is there anything else that you like? Who has been one of the funnest people to talk to? Like, I know you talked about a little bit about you. I know you have a little bit of you talked about your experience in the customer service industry. Is it fun to interview a doctor or somebody else in the medical profession to realize we all suffer similarly as service persons?
It's a thoughtful question. Yeah, it's cathartic to learn that it's sort of very easy to believe you're terminally unique, and the suffering that you're experiencing at your job is just you, and how are you surviving? And so it is incredibly cathartic to know that even if I had chosen, not to go into the arts, that I always feel long suffering for, my choice. That it is nice to know that other jobs can become routine and monotonous and have definitely some huge lows, very high highs, but very low lows. So yes, talking to people outside of the customer services, I know it is very cathartic. And I'm very, very fortunate that I have access to incredibly funny people who are willing to give me their time. So it is neat to get to know these comics who I've seen, perform in front of so many people, have the sort of come up story. It gives me a bit of hope, because it is hard to remember that when you're pursuing the arts, that when you have a survival job, which people never use this word, call it a thrival job. I will throw glass in your eyeballs. Like, please don't ever call it that in front of me. But it is nice to see that there is sort of a way out. I think it gives me a bit of hope as an artist. And yeah, the doctor is very interesting. Lawyers have been very interesting. I'm desperate to get a cop on. So if any of your listeners are police officers, although I know it's hairy and I will have no agenda, I just want to know the stories of like the drunk girls peeing on you or the whatever, like but yes, to answer your question, yeah, it's been very, very cathartic to know that, every job has hardship.
Yeah. I think you might know this more profoundly, having worked in the industry more recently, but for those within earshot of this podcast who are experiencing, as everyone is, the COVID reality and going out to try to enjoy what is left of restaurants and bars and things right now, do your server a solid and go easy on them, as I think you always should. Yeah, right? Do you think so, Kate?
Oh, Jeff, I mean, say it again. Yeah, I mean, the average that I'm hearing is now people are getting 10% tips because everyone's arguing, well, I didn't have an income during a certain period of time, which, listen, I honor that. And if your focus is, I want this restaurant in my town or my city or whatever, this restaurant that is mom and pop, and I want to keep it alive, and it's struggling, and it's the difference between you being able to tip or not that you choose to go, still go. Keep the restaurants open because you're at least letting that server be employed. But like, feel free to be that vulnerable and honest and tell them that up top. Not that shouldn't change how they serve you, but definitely communicate that. If that, I mean, financial limitations, trust and believe. I'm living in my mother's basement and I'm in my 30s. Like, please, we're all eating some humble pie during this time. But if it is the difference between you keeping it, keeping a restaurant open or not, still go. But feel free to let the server know, like, hey, I got you once, everything's back up and running and I have my full-time job back. But yeah, go easy, because also we gonna be rusty. I promise you, the first few nights that I'm back at the store, like, I will forget your drinks. I will bring you someone else's drink. I'm gonna be slow as hell because I'm not running during COVID. Who is, like, so yeah. But yes, Jeff, that's a very thoughtful thing to let your audience know. But you guys are thoughtful. I'm sure your audience is also incredibly thoughtful. So I doubt any of you listening would have been crappy to your servers or would be in the future. But yeah, it's a time to be gentle.
It is. But I'm not going to be gentle in the scoring. Guys, you get 1 point because you beat Kate to Cheers. You beat her.
You did.
You get the point.
As the first time that has ever happened with a guest on the show. Amazing.
Yeah, it's unprecedented. Because I think also Kate is strong. She's strong, and she's got her own podcast to go back and rule over, like the Iron Sheik, and just be that's her fiefdom. So she's got that.
Oh, I love that.
Did you just compare her to the Iron Sheik?
Yeah, I don't know why.
He did. I'm taking it. Don't take that away from me.
I kind of like, it was a portmanteau of rule with an iron hand, and then I don't know why I stuck a Sheik in there. But otherwise, you guys get 1 point, but otherwise Kate gets 3 for choosing Always Sunny. Yeah, right? It's fun to celebrate. Parks and Rec and Law and Order SVU. So, yeah, you feel good, Kate?
Yeah, thank you so much again for having me on. You all are very lovely people. And even though Richard has a strong affinity for the other Kate Gaffney, I'm going to look past that and still sing the praises of this lovely podcast. Because it is, all kidding aside, it is very rare as a guest on a podcast, but particularly as a female with an all-male lineup to, be handled so lovely with such lovely kid gloves and be honoring of my words. So yeah, thanks, gentlemen.
Well, you are awesome, and people can find this Kate Gaffney at the Kate Gaffney. There's 2 F's, NEY.com. And then the podcast is, of course, Service from Hell. And we would love for you to go out and listen to it on Spotify. It's on Apple Podcasts. It's on Google Podcasts. It's on Stitcher. All the places.
Everywhere.
This has been the Mount Rushmore podcast. I, as always, am Jeff.
I'm Richard.
And Michael.
And I'm Kate.